Chapter 5. One Slice at a Time. The barn was quieter than it had been in weeks. Only the hum of the stabilizer and the faint glow of scattered holograms lingered in the air, like echoes of a storm that had thundered itself into silence. The ship's trajectory line still traced across the holographic map, extending outward beyond Mars, a bright arc threading toward the belt of ancient rocks that circled their system like a necklace of forgotten time. 10 days. The line glowed steady, mocking them with its patience. Zama folded her arms, her brows pinched. 10 days, she repeated, more to herself than to the others. And then 2 weeks before the robot builds the portal. 24 days until we see if this works. Carlos let out a low whistle and leaned back against a hay bale. 24 days. That's like forever. He tried to laugh, but the sound fell flat in the barn. His dark curls shadowed his forehead as he rubbed his face. Akio had been silent, flipping through his notebook, his pencil tapping against equations no child should have been able to write, let alone wrestle with. When he spoke, his voice was tight, controlled. We should use that time. If we wait without preparing, we'll waste it. And we can't afford to waste anything. Not energy, not time, not thought. Priya's tablet chimed as if in agreement. She tilted it toward the others, lines of glowing equations scrolling down its face. I've been modeling something. A hypothesis. Think of space not as a single sheet of fabric, but as... She paused, searching for the metaphor. Slices. Each page is a slice of nodes in space, extending from infinity to infinity in every direction, up, down, left, right. But each slice has a depth, only 100 meters in and out. Beyond that, another slice, and another. An endless stack. The others leaned closer. Even Carlos, who groaned at equations, frowned in concentration. So, Priya continued, her dark eyes burning with the thought, if those slices can be pulled together, we don't need to cross 4 light years. We only need to bring 2 slices close enough that they touch. What looks like 4 years of distance could collapse to 100 meters. Zama's hand rose to her chin, brushing it in thought. Like bending pages of a book, so 2 words far apart end up side by side. Exactly, Priya said, her voice quickening, except each page isn't paper. It's nodes of reality, infinite in length and width, but thin in depth. If we bend them, Alpha Centauri might be 1 breath away. Akio's pencil stilled. He stared at her screen, then flipped to a blank page. Show me your math. The barn filled again with numbers, arcs, models, the glowing overlap of their visions. Equations painted arcs of electromagnetic fields in the air. Carlos projected a ship design onto the wall, hull scattering waves like ripples on water. Akio's grid expanded, yellow threads stretching outward across the galaxy, and Zama's stabilizer pulsed violet light in rhythm with their thoughts, each beat steady, grounding them in the impossible. They talked late into the night. The distance problem. Akio calculated the raw figures. Proxima Centauri, 4.2 light years. Even at light speed, that's over 4 years. For us, impossible. But with Priya's slices, he scribbled, pages filling. If a depth of 100 meters at 1,000 light years distance costs 20 megawatts, then 4 light years might need much less megawatts. Priya interrupted softly. If the folds are precise. If energy doesn't bleed away into heat or waste. If it all goes exactly where it should. Carlos raised his eyebrows. If. That's a lot of ifs, but Zama's voice cut through, firm. That's all we ever had. Ifs. And we've made them into maybes, and maybes into will. The group fell silent for a moment. Dust drifted through a crack in the roof, touched by starlight. Outside, the night stretched endless, cruel, and magnificent. The problem grew larger as they mapped it. Beyond Proxima lay Orenda's path. 8 other stars, each another leap. Canopus, Sirius, Betelgeuse, Atlas, Hamal, Gamma Trianguli, Almach, Merak, and finally 32 Andromeda. Each was impossibly far. Each demanded more energy, more precision, more courage than children should have ever dreamed of. And beyond them all, like a shadow waiting, lay Andromeda itself, a galaxy spanning millions of light years, the realm where Orenda hid. How long? Zama asked. Akio adjusted his glasses, tapping the table. To Proxima Centauri at light speed? 4 years. To Canopus after that? 310 years. Sirius? 8.6. Betelgeuse? 640. Atlas, Hamal, Gamma Trianguli. He stopped, shaking his head. Thousands of years, millions once we cross into Andromeda. At light speed, it's not a path, it's a prison. But Priya shook her head. Not if we bend. Not if the slices are real. 100 meters of depth, stretched across the infinite. If reality is a book, then distance is an illusion. Carlos exhaled, half a laugh, half fear. An illusion that'll fry us if we get it wrong. The slice theory. They decided then, 10 days until the ship reached the belt, 24 until the portal rose. In that time, they would test, write, dream, simulate. They would not wait. The barn became a second universe, glowing with impossible color. Priya's tablet whispered with code. Akio's notebook snapped shut and opened again, faster than a heartbeat, filled with numbers no one else alive could follow. Zama stood at the stabilizer, hand resting on the violet crystal, whispering to it as though it were alive. And Carlos, grinning through fear, painted ships across the walls, each hull scattering light like a promise. Together, they leaned into the future, their young minds bent toward destiny, their shadows stretching tall across the barn walls. The barn lights had dimmed, but the glow of equations, projections, and the soft heartbeat of the stabilizer crystal kept the room alive. The air was heavy, warm from long hours, and charged with something bigger than hope, conviction carved out of exhaustion. The silence between pulses, outside, the South African night stretched endlessly, the fields quiet except for the restless shuffle of animals. Inside, the 4 sat huddled around the central projection. Every breath, every glance, every hesitation seemed magnified. Priya's equations floated in arcs of pale blue, shimmering as though made of smoke. Akio's golden orbital threads threaded the galaxy like spider silk, taut and delicate. Carlos's ship hulls hovered faintly in silver, sleek ghosts of vessels yet unborn, and Zama's stabilizer pulsed violet light, steady, unwavering, the heartbeat of their fragile dream. No one spoke for a long time. They were thinking, listening, to the hum of the crystal, to the quiet certainty that something was stirring at the edge of their comprehension. Carlos finally broke the silence, his voice low, more serious than usual. You realize, right? We are just kids. We're supposed to be doing homework or soccer practice or, I don't know, not this. His grin faltered. The wildness in his eyes dimmed, replaced by something older, heavier. Zama turned her head toward him, her face calm, though the violet glow deepened the shadows under her eyes. We were never just kids. The words hung like a vow. The first fold. Simulation ready, Priya whispered, tapping her tablet. The barn filled with ripples of light. Layers of translucent slices unfolded in the air, stacked infinitely upward and downward, like panes of glass no hand could touch. She tapped again. Target, 100 meters. The stabilizer pulsed in resonance, its violet heartbeat syncing with the projection. The slices shivered. Then, a shock wave of light tore through the barn. Two slices snapped together. For 3 impossible seconds, the void between them collapsed. A corridor of raw, humming reality yawned open, glowing in violet and blue. All 4 of them froze, their eyes wide. Then, snap, the fold recoiled. The slices snapped apart violently, scattering shards of light that fizzled against the wooden beams. The barn shook, hay falling in soft cascades from the rafters. Silence followed. It worked, Priya whispered, her voice trembling with awe. It failed, Akio corrected sharply, though his knuckles were white where he gripped his notebook. 3 seconds won't send a portal through. Carlos barked a nervous laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. 3 seconds, enough for me to lose my left arm before the rest of me follows. Zama's hand brushed the stabilizer crystal. Its violet pulse had not faltered. Her voice was calm, steady. 3 seconds is enough to prove it can be done. We'll make it longer. The others looked at her. Something in her certainty steadied them, as though she had caught the pieces of their fear and fit them back together. The first wall. The next night, Akio wasted no time. He expanded the projection into a galaxy-wide map, stars blooming like lanterns across the barn. His pencil scratched furiously across his notebook as he spoke. Our first real challenge is distance. There are no stars within a single light year of Earth. None. The closest is Proxima Centauri, 4.24 light years away. Carlos whistled low. So we can't hop one step at a time. Not unless we invent new rules of physics, Akio muttered. Priya pushed her tablet forward, blue arcs spilling like rivers across the projection. Then we anchored a Proxima. It's faint, a red dwarf, but it orbits with Alpha Centauri A and B. Once we fold there, the rest is chaining stars together. One leap at a time, Zama frowned. And how much energy will the Proxima fold need? Akio scribbled, his equations flowing across the page like a storm. At light speed, 4 years. For a fold, maybe 4 megawatts. But that's theoretical. We don't even have a mechanism to anchor a stabilizer on the far side. The barn fell quiet. Carlos's grin faded. So, even if we snap the slices together, what's waiting for us there? Nothing. Just empty space. Zama's voice was soft but firm. Then we build something. A way to anchor from this side until the robot on the other side can take over the map of destiny. The galaxy above them shimmered with new stars as Akio expanded the projection outward. His golden thread stitched constellations into a path. Step 1, Proxima Centauri, 4.2 light years. Step 2, Canopus, 310 light years. Step 3, Sirius, 8.6. Step 4, Betelgeuse, 640. Step 5, Atlas in the Pleiades, 444. Step 6, Hamal in Aries, 66. Step 7, Gamma Trianguli, 118. Step 8, Almach, 350. Step 9, Mirach, 200. Step 10, 32 Andromeda, about 200. And then Messier 31, the Andromeda Galaxy, 2.5 million light years. The names and numbers hung in the air like sacred scripture. Priya whispered, each one is a door. 8 doors leading to Arenda. And beyond the last door, Zama added, the Andromeda Galaxy. Carlos leaned back, his grin gone, replaced by something haunted. 2.5 million light years. Even bending space, that's insane. Not insane, Priya said sharply, her eyes flashing. Just elastic. The weight of waiting. Day by day, the countdown ticked. The cloaked ship hurtled outward, shrinking Earth behind it. 10 days to the asteroid belt. 14 more for the robot to build the portal frame. 24 days. In those 24 days, the barn became a crucible of brilliance and tension. Priya's fingers never stopped, her equations painting space as slices, each one shallow but infinite. She whispered to herself late into the night, refining her concept of dark matter as the ether. Slices upon slices, elasticity stretched across 1,000 light years at a time. Akio grew sharper, harder, his notebooks filled with calculations of gravitational lattices, warnings about recoil, margins thinner than a hair's breadth. He snapped often, but always returned, his precision anchoring them to reality. Carlos brought levity, but his grin was brittle. His hollow CAD projections scattered across the barn walls, stealth hulls shimmering like ghost ships, reactors humming silently in imagined perfection. And Zama, always steady, tuned the stabilizer with quiet determination. Her hands brushed the violet crystal, her voice whispering, her will anchoring theirs when fear cracked them open. Fractures and resolve. The barn was beginning to feel like two places at once, a sanctuary of brilliance and a furnace of exhaustion. By the 12th night, the air inside was thick with tension. Priya's voice had grown sharp, her words clipped as she fired back at Akio's calculations. You're too rigid. Equations aren't chains, they're possibilities. Akio snapped his notebook shut, his jaw tightening. Possibilities without boundaries collapse into chaos. You want to fold 4 light years of distance into 100 meters? Then respect the boundaries. Carlos groaned, throwing his head back against a wooden beam. If I hear one more word about boundaries, I'm going to cloak myself out of this barn. His grin was lopsided, but there was no real humor in it. Zama, who had been silent, touched the stabilizer crystal. Its violet glow pulsed steady, grounding, unchanging. She closed her eyes for a long moment, then opened them again. Her voice was quiet but firm. We are not falling apart. Not when we've come this far. The barn grew still. The arguments ebbed. Even Akio's pencil softened against the page. The recoil problem. On the 15th day, their simulation folded again. 2 slices of space snapping together, a corridor of glowing violet-blue light bridging across reality. But then the recoil came. The fold slammed back with a violence that rattled the barn. The holographic galaxy fractured, shards of starlight scattering like broken glass. The stabilizer flickered dangerously, its violet pulse sputtering before Zama steadied it with her hands. Priya gasped, her fingers racing across her tablet. The elasticity snapped. The field couldn't hold. Akio's voice was harsh but steady. Exactly as I warned. Elastic space recoils. If we can't balance the resonance, the fold will collapse every time. Carlos pressed a hand to his chest, his curls damp with sweat. If that had been real, we'd all be cosmic confetti. Zama raised her chin, her voice unwavering. Then we balance it, not with force, with harmony, the stabilizer's secret. The 4 gathered around the crystal. It pulsed calmly, steadily, its rhythm unchanged even when everything else fell apart. Look, Zama whispered. It never broke rhythm. Not once Akio leaned closer, his glasses catching the violet light. He scribbled furiously, translating the pulse into waveforms, equations, resonance curves. His eyes widened. She's right. If we match our models to this frequency, if we synchronize with the stabilizer, we might hold the fold longer. Priya's shoulders sagged, relief washing over her. For the first time in days, she smiled faintly. Then let's rebuild the code. Carlos exhaled hard, a grin creeping back. From brute force to harmony. I like it. Makes us sound like a band instead of a bunch of lunatics. For the first time that week, laughter rippled through the barn. Small, tired, but real. The longest night. They rebuilt the code line by line. Priya recalculated elasticity with the stabilizer's pulse as her constant. Akio redefined the gravitational lattices, syncing orbital wells to the crystal's frequency. Carlos re-engineered reactor modules to match the resonance without wasting heat. And Zama tuned the stabilizer itself, whispering to element 777 as if coaxing a friend. The barn glowed with impossible light, violet pulses, golden orbits, blue arcs, silver ships. It was chaos and harmony in equal measure. Hours blurred. Dawn bled into night again. Their eyes stung, their hands shook, but none of them stopped. The fold that held. On. The 24th night, Priya's voice trembled as she tapped the final command. Running elasticity fold. Target, 100 meters. With resonance match. The stabilizer thrummed. The holographic grid rippled. 2 slices of space bent, folding, their nodes snapping into alignment. And this time, they held. 1 second. 2. 3. The barn glowed violet blue, the fold humming like a living heartbeat. 4 seconds. 5. The slices did not recoil. The fold held steady, humming in perfect resonance with the crystal's pulse. 10 seconds. The barn was filled with awe. Their faces were lit by the impossible corridor of space, steady and calm. Priya's eyes glistened. It works. Akio whispered, almost reverently. It holds. Carlos laughed, wild and breathless. 10 seconds. Enough to get my whole body through, shoes and all. Zama's voice was steady, quiet, but carrying the weight of a vow. This is it. They stood in silence, watching the fold, their shadows stretching long across the barn walls, toward destiny. When the fold finally faded, the barn was quiet again, but this time the silence was different. It wasn't heavy with failure or doubt. It was filled with something larger, something vast. Carlos leaned forward, his grin fierce, though his eyes trembled. We actually did it. Priya exhaled slowly, her tablet dimming in her hands. 100 meters. A doorway across infinity. Akio shut his notebook with a snap, though his lips curved with the faintest smile. 1 slice at a time. Zama placed both hands on the stabilizer crystal, its pulse syncing with her own. Her voice was calm, reverent. Then we keep walking. Outside, dawn spilled across the horizon, painting the barn in gold. Inside, 4 young friends had bent space itself and set their first step toward destiny.